Hey guys, I'm Shanna with The Best Groceries. About 4.5 months ago, I had a problem in my gardens with thrips and spider mites, and I had made a video showing how I was treating them at that time. In this video, I'm going to give you a quick update on how those treatments worked and some additional things that I've learned since that time. If you haven't watched that other video, I would recommend doing that first. I'll put a link at the top of the screen, and also there'll be a link to it at the end of this video as well in case you decide to watch this one first. Okay, so let's dig in and talk about these pests. The first pest I was dealing with is spider mites. These were primarily affecting my cucumber plants, and then when they got really bad, they started getting onto my pepper plants as well. They never did go onto my tomato plants or my lettuce, so I'm finding with all of these different pests, they all seem to prefer a certain plant, and once you know what that is, you can keep an eye out for them on those plants specifically. There were 4 things I did to treat the spider mite problem. The first was to remove all the plants from my garden and give them a spray off in the shower. While the plants were out, I also wiped all the spider webs off the garden, and then I purchased these beneficial insect packets made by Copert at my local hydroponic store. They're pretty affordable. I bought a ton of them and put them throughout both of my gardens. And lastly, I learned that spider mites like dry environment, so I had tried misting my plants with water regularly to try and make the environment less friendly for them. I'm happy to report that the problem is completely resolved. The spider mites are gone. I would say that the 2 most effective things I did were the one-time sort of mechanical removal of the spider mites, spraying off the plants and wiping the webs off the garden, as well as the beneficial insect packet. So I would definitely recommend those 2 steps. What I don't think worked very well was the misting of the plants. I ended up giving my cucumber plants powdery mildew from them being so wet, and that has been a persistent problem since then. So I definitely don't recommend doing that step. Since the problem has been resolved, I've been keeping a smaller amount of the beneficial insect packets in my garden. I just do 2 per level on my one garden that has the cucumber plants. Since they didn't affect my garden with the lettuce and herbs, I don't even worry about them over there. They're a low cost, and I only have to buy them every 2 or 3 weeks, so it's not very expensive at all, and I figure I will never have a spider mite problem again, because if they show up, I've already got some good guys there to get rid of them as soon as they arrive. So those are my recommendations for preventing and resolving spider mite problems in your garden. Now let's move on to talking about the thrips. The thrips primarily affected my lettuce. They were in my garden for quite a while before I got the situation resolved, and they never spread to anything else. So definitely keep an eye on your lettuce for this. The treatments I originally did on the thrips was, again, like the spider mites, I took all the plants out of the garden and sprayed them all off. And I also bought beneficial insect packets. These ones were specialized for thrips, and put a whole bunch of them in my garden where the thrips were a problem. Unfortunately, those steps weren't enough to resolve the problem on their own. The situation drug out for quite a long time until I learned one new key piece of information that made the difference. What I learned was that the thrips lay their eggs on the inside of the lettuce leaves. So just having the beneficial insects on the outside wasn't enough to get rid of them. What I needed to do was, as soon as I saw the signs of thrips, the silvery patches on the leaves that I showed in the last video, I immediately removed those leaves from the plant and disposed of them far away from the garden. And that way I got rid of the eggs of the future thrips and could decrease the population. So for a period of time, my garden looked very sparse. Most of the leaves of my lettuce were off the plants, but thankfully it only took a few weeks of doing this before the situation really improved a lot. And as far as I can tell, it's 100% resolved now. So my tips for preventing thrips is, again, to get those beneficial insect packets. Now that I don't have the problem anymore, I'm just doing 2 per level on my levels that have greens on them. And then if you actually have a thrip problem, the steps would be spray off your plants to get rid of as many as possible, pick off any leaves you see with the silver spots on them, and get a larger amount of those beneficial insect packets for a period of time until the problem resolves. One last thing that I want to mention is that after thinking about it for a while, I believe that both of those pests came into my garden from new plants that I brought into my house. So make sure that you are not bringing any pre-existing plants anywhere near your garden. If you bring them home, put them far away for a few weeks until you can see if there's any problems with them. And all of the plants in my rise garden are now going to be grown from seeds. I won't be doing any transplanting of plants from elsewhere into the rise garden. These problems were really annoying and time consuming for me. I hope these videos will help you deal with them more easily and with less stress if you do end up with these problems, or ideally, maybe my advice will help you prevent them. If you found this video useful, please give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel.